So I'm kind of high energy in the sense that I like to get up and move around. I will try to do my best to stay in the Facebook crowd there. And so one of the things is that sometimes you go, okay, well, what does the person do? So my life's blood and passion is Florida thoroughbreds and horses. And so you say, arts? How's she going to connect to the arts? But my side dish, if you will, is I love artists. I have a lot of artist friends that say, oh, you're the structured person that can help me get this done while I go over and paint and have all these cool ideas I have in my head. And so for many years, I've helped promote a number of artist friends, and I have a lot of really great friends. I remember helping a friend for FAFO. We've worked with FAFO to publicize some of the events that happen at FAFO, of course, Horse Fever. And when I was very young, I was an aspiring artist, so I thought. So every art project was over the top for history class or whatever it might be. So we all have that in us somewhere, right? And then when I lived in Puerto Rico, I learned, bright colors, all of those things that are much, much, much different than what I had grown up with in the Midwest. It was very realism versus, hey, we can do different things with art, and horses don't have to look like horses specifically. They can have some different things to them. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to let Carol talk a little bit about her connection to the arts.
Yes, so I just like them. So my connection. I'm actually very distracted looking at all the art around me. I keep looking. So I do truly love the arts. When my husband and I got married a couple of years ago, we actually structured our honeymoon around going out to see Dale Chihuly's work out in Seattle because we just love it so much. And so wherever we go, art is always a passion of ours, so we collect art. And so my background is actually public relations, which is one of the ways that Jay and I connected years ago. And we're both graduates of journalism college at University of Florida with degrees in PR, go Gators. And then I've had a variety of jobs through the years. I've worked in tourism, I've worked in business, I work in social services and education right now. All of these things which have a calling to me at some level, but it really doesn't matter wherever I am. The arts are always there. And I'm currently at Pace Center for Girls, and we work with girls who come from trauma situations, middle and high school girls who have been through some really tough, traumatic situations. So they're not doing well in their schools typically, so we serve as a school for them during the day, Monday through Friday, all year round, as opposed to a traditional school with the summer off. But we help them with their academics, with teachers, and getting caught up, and work very much with the therapeutic side, because we know without helping them come up with their coping skills and such, they can't survive and they can't succeed in the academics. But part of that we have come to really embrace are the arts, because the arts are very therapeutic. So we're actually working with a program where we will be a pilot with our girls, doing some therapeutic art activities, bringing in some artists to work with them every week and helping them and setting some data benchmarks and looking at where we're going with that. But it was so important to me because the arts are such an enhancement to life, and for our girls, they can actually be a lifeline to life. So that is where I come from in terms of loving the arts.
So it's interesting that she kind of mentioned that, because today's idea was we're going to talk about tips and tricks, but I think before we would do that, I think there's just a greater conversation we want to have. So if some of you could talk about some of your tips or tricks first, what are some things that you do right now to promote your art and your brand? Yes?
Okay, getting outside of my comfort zone.
I'm sorry, say again?
Getting outside of my comfort zone and pressing into, like I started a breathe and brush with a chiropractor around here, and I might be doing a fashion show with a designer, like just saying yes to art.
Okay, yes to art. So for those on Facebook, basically, she mentioned some breathing and what was it called? Breathe and brush with chiropractor. And your second one
was possibly a fashion show.
The fashion show. So a little bit different. What are some other ways that you might promote yourself as an artist that you're currently doing?
Social media.
Okay, social media.
Guest lecturing.
Guest lecturing.
Well, I'm new in the community, and I'm also a new artist, so for me, this is a lot of just kind of putting myself out there, getting out and meeting people and seeing shows and coming to things like this.
Okay, meeting people, seeing shows, going to some seminars. Any others? Probably obviously joining MCA.
Honesty. Like just being honest with people and word of mouth type of thing. Just keeping a good public relations
Okay, honestly, which comes into what we're going to talk about in a moment. Anyone else? Any other things that they think, man, this is different, and it really helps me excel with my art? None? Okay, I think that we go on to our next part in a little bit. So appreciate those. Oh, you want me to lead? Okay, I'll go right ahead. So we want to talk a little bit about when you think about brand and you think about yourself in your art, you really are an extension. Your art is an extension of who you are. So sometimes artists will say, I'm going to go on social media, I'm going to go on this, I'm going to go on that. And those are, strategic goals, right? You're like, I have a tactic here, I'm going to do that. But what is your overarching 1,000-foot level? And what do you look like? So when I walk up to you as an artist, who are you? And like you said, honesty. What are you about? Why you do your art? So let's think a little bit about that and kind of anyone have any feedback on that? So why do you do the art that you do?
For me, I'm a photographer. It started as just getting out to relax and being outdoors, but it's grown into like an appreciation of nature and wildlife and helping others learn about it and appreciate it and see things that they didn't know you could see within 50 miles of here.
And so is that an extension of who you are? You love nature? You love teaching others? Okay. Anyone else? Why you do the art you do? Yes?
Well, I'm also a photographer, and I like to use my photography to enhance nonprofits, women's groups. I work with a women's motorcycle group, and I was picked up by the founder of a group called Stilettos on Steel, and she's investing in these women to give them a good self-image, and so I donate my time to them. I try to find other nonprofits where I can donate my time. Local businesses, I try to help businesses by going in and doing collections of their interior spaces, of their product, to get it out there. But I also work with some artists as well, and I go in and I photograph their collections and give them a visual online presence that they can use images that I shoot that enhance their either online sales or just promote their their business, their art through a website.
So what I'm hearing you say is giving back and making a difference is important to you. So you're using your art in that way as well to help others.
Yes. But I also use it at, I shoot weddings. I do, all kinds, there still has to be things that help, cover the expenses of being able to do the nonprofit work. So it's a good balance, and sometimes it gets a little out of whack. Sometimes it can be far too far in one direction. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I got to pay myself.
Exactly. So you're talking about what you're doing, but why? What is your brand? Like, what word would summarize you? I believe it's giving back, or some words, but if someone said, as an artist, this is what words I think of when I think of her. So when you think of keywords on social media, right, you have to pick 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 that relate to your business. Well, what does that mean for you as an artist? What are those words you're going to use for yourself?
And what is important that be included that does represent you in your brand?
And he's like, quiet, and that's good. So what we want to do for just a couple minutes is partner with the person next to you and just talk a little bit. If you're not an artist, that's okay. Just go with it there, or non-artist. And talk with the person next to you and say, talk about your personal life, what's super meaningful for you, what's really important for you. And then let's see if they can identify what they believe some of your artist brand is. So it's not what you do or the type of art you do. We're talking about who you are.
And what
Okay?
is your why?
So Savannah, there you go, and then we'll partner you two together, and you two. For those on Facebook, take a moment to think about what your why is as an artist. So what you want to do is think about the words that you would like someone from the outside to think of you about. So whether that be that, for example, if you're Latina, maybe the most important thing for you is to express that you're a Latina in the Latin culture. If you are a person that loves horses, maybe it's saying that you're an animal lover, what that looks like.
Your passions, and what does your brand mean for you? What does it represent for you?
Yeah, great.
The whole thing is very good.
Which one?
The cultural piece, very good, very important.
What I said, what?
Representing your culture,
Oh,
your
yeah.
Hispanic culture, very,
And
very
he's
important.
Cuban, so that might be a good piece to mention.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know I was going to stump everyone. Everyone was giving a list of the things they do, not the why of it. Huh?
Because they're creatives. They
Yeah.
don't always know why. They're just, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But But why? I don't know. It's just me. Why?
Who are you? Yeah. I'm going to listen in a little. You're a creative. I know you have some stuff there you're thinking of.
We're talking about how I often choose my subject matter based off how the light and color is happening. So subject matter isn't necessarily important to me, but it's just like teaching people to like see beauty in like everyday kind of things.
And where do you think that came from? From your childhood, where you noticed the lights and darks and the colors in a different way than maybe others did?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was like outside a lot, and then I do remember there was a lecture in college, and it was a lighting guy came in from Pixar,
Okay.
and I was just really like wowed by just how lighting can just change movement, that kind of stuff. So I think I just tried to use the lighting and color to my advantage to like help create some sort of mood.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense.
But I don't know if that's my why. I mean,
Or who you are, the essence of you. Like if someone met you and their first impression and walked away versus someone that knows you for many years and what they would say about you. So think about some of your friends and what they might say about you. And does that evoke in your art?
I was telling him, like, I'm passionate and meticulous with, like, things in life, but also, like, my art as well.
You're also really thoughtful. I mean, like you're an introvert.
Ambivert.
I think I see you as being very thoughtful and
Sure.
yeah, that's a big part of you too.
And you? And you?
I don't do anything.
What about your culture? Do you bring your family, you mentioned your family, your Cuban parents, do you bring that culture out in some of the art that you do? Or?
I don't know what, I mean, we grew up in, I don't know where that came from, but I do love black and white photography. Yeah. It's not the only time in my life, but I do kind of always wanted to film there. I think part of it is just
The symphony, like those little things, they just like fill my cup. So that's why you're welcome.
Well, that's an art form in itself.
That's true.
Completely believe it.
That's true. And then Riley and Mary are two of my favorite non-profits.
photography really just started as
We're going to wrap it up in about 1 minute, so try to wrap up your conversations and we'll bring you back to the main room. With graphic design, you do art, so what's your why? Because it's your job. No.
No, my art, when I say now to people, they ask me all the time, do you do art? I'm like, well, the art to me is putting up the exhibits for the artist. Or
I
putting
personally
up the
think
work.
your personal fashion is art.
Thank you.
Honestly, it's an extension of who you are, right?
Yeah, I try to.
From head to toe,
Thank you.
for sure.
You're awesome.
It is beautiful. See, here's another artist on the way. Okay, we're going to all gather back together. We're all going to all gather back together. So hopefully the Facebook crowd thought of a few things. We're all gathering back. We'll give them a second to wrap up. So let's talk a little bit about, I know Ashley in the back mentioned, did you want to go ahead and mention what your conversation with me was as far as what you felt was your extension of your art?
Tammy came up to me, she's like, you're an artist, you're creative. A lot of people come in and they say, like, they ask me if I do art myself. I'm like, well, I don't anymore. I went to art school, but what I consider my art now is putting up the art for the artists and curating the exhibits and planning the events and all of that, which I love. So.
And what did I point out to you that I think your real art is?
She said I dress well. That's
Honestly, her art is her it's head to toe her art, right? I mean, she walks in with the creativity on her sleeve, literally. And I think that sends a thing to folks that you're a free spirit, that you have your individuality, that you are fun loving. So those are the messages I take from you when I see you without even knowing you. I mean, maybe you're not, but I think you are.
So we were having a great conversation over here, and I just loved the story that you were telling. So if you don't mind, I'd like you to share that because it delves into a couple of different things that I think are really super important as you think about your why and how you're presenting.
Sure. My name is Cortland Richards. I am an old-time Ocala person. I just moved back here, but I was a commercial photographer for over 45 years and worked in Atlanta and shot catalogs and worked in Birmingham and worked for Southern Living Magazine, and I also worked for Alabama Division of Tourism in Mobile. And when I first bought my first digital camera in 2006 or 2007, somewhere in there.
Coming so they can hear better.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. Not prowling, just...
The first thing that I did with my digital camera before shooting commercial jobs with it was starting to experiment. And I started trying to figure out how flexible the digital camera system is compared to the old film cameras, because I used to shoot with 2 1/4 and 4x5 and product photography, and everything's very static. The only thing that changes is lighting. So I started experimenting with digital cameras and doing abstract photography with flowers and doing really slow shutter speeds and spinning the camera and zooming in and out. And one day I happened on a little bit of a technique while I was at the Birmingham Botanical Gardens, and I'm going, that's pretty, that's art. And it was completely different than shooting beds or hotels or restaurants and stuff that I used to do. And I'm going, that's really art, because I graduated with a degree in art from FSU, but I never used my degree because I became a technical photographer over time. So then I started working with these abstracts more and more. I'm going, I'm an artist again. This is really kind of cool. It's not the same. And basically, I had a show in Mobile a number of years ago where I printed really large images of these abstract. And then I have a permanent collection at the Orange Beach Center for the Arts over there, and they have 10 or 12 of my images. So anyway, that was my way of giving back to my art. And I kind of lost track of what I was going to say. But
Well, I think it's a defining moment of when you said, I moved from commercial, to something very pragmatic, to art. This is what I am. I am an artist. And so there's that moment we all have, right? In my case, it's when I knew I was a horse lover. The first moment I crawled up on the tail of a horse before I could walk, I knew I was a horse lover, right? It just happened. So does anyone else have that moment when they go, I was an artist? I knew that moment. Anyone have a defining moment?
Or felt your passion.
Or felt that spark?
I want to do more of this. I really love this.
I was speaking about how, I was attending a lecture in college, and there was 4 artists that came in that were working on Toy Story 3 from Pixar, and each one of them were working on the same scenes, and they were showing like what their addition was to it. And the last person that was going on to speak, and by this time, I thought the image was like amazing and completely finished and whatnot. And the last person was a lighting person, and that artist came and just like blew my mind. And it was just like they totally changed all of the lighting and just totally shifted the mood and altered the color because of the lighting. So a lot of my artwork is based off of light and color.
And so what are some of the words?
We were talking about thoughtful, intentful, passionate, but yeah, I'm as far as like lighting and stuff, I'm not sure what falls into that. But.
We're working at getting your brands. We're moving that direction. We are. You're starting to come out, and folks. Anyone else want to add? Yes.
I'll do hers.
Okay. There we go. Let's hear those words.
So her words would have been release therapy or therapeutic, looking at the wonder of life, creation, self-discovery, so it was really interesting, like, really, you just now decided, but because of the way her life has taken her, this was a way to see the world through a different set of eyes.
It's a beautiful journey.
I love that.
That's beautiful. It really is. It makes me want to get a little tearful, like I feel like I just really know you now. And that's part of it, is figuring out a brand so that people know you. And so it's not necessarily the things that you're doing and the steps that you're taking as far as where you're placing yourself for the art. It's who you are as a person. And because once you establish that brand, if you will, which is truly who you are as a person, that helps guide your conversations with your clients or potential clients. It's going to guide your journey toward the next piece of art. And so I'll give you an example, because you mentioned mood and everything. So I had this friend that I met, and she was actually at the football stadium, and she had all these sports things. She had a baseball player, and everything was very realistic. You know, the baseball player doing the Heisman move, and, you know, or not, I'm sorry, that's the football. That's the baseball. Well, you know, it's not my sport, right? But anyway, you get the idea, all those different ones. So she had them, they were awesome, and they were these famous people. And she was doing it. She goes, I'm not really happy, but I'm doing this. But it was bright colored and everything. So she knew she wanted to do something else, but she was doing this because, you know, that's what she was. But she was happy personally, but as an artist, she wasn't fully feeling like she was at her potential. And I was like, well, the racetrack's next door. You want to do horses? And she's like, sure. And she did really nice horses. And then about a year later, I lost touch with her, and I went to one of her shows. And before everything was bright colors and life, like, well, here's the horses running, and behind them it looks like a storm about to attack them, and it looked like demons, and it was just brush strokes that were, you know, crazy mad, and black colors and dark. And I was like, oh, wow, took a turn for the worse. I guess she doesn't like horses. Well, I asked her, I said, well, what happened? Your art's so much different. And it was bigger, too. It was bigger pieces instead of the smaller pieces. And she said, I got a divorce. And she goes, that's the era of when I went through my divorce. You guys are all shaking your heads like, I can identify with my art, feels different the way I feel. And so it was really interesting, because it took her about 3 years to move off of that art style into a new art style. And so you could actually say her journey through going through a divorce and that pain that she was having reflected in her art.
Mm-hmm. And so going back to working with our PACE girls, who again, anyone who's been through trauma, and for me it happens to be middle and high school girls, when you see their art, you see it immediately. You see the colors, you see the textures, you see the anger, sometimes you see the hurt. So you see it and you know there's a story there. So my question would be, what are the stories you're telling with your art?
Anyone have an example? Feel free to share. I know this is a safe space. We're on Facebook, I know.
Except for this little free,
Yes,
very private.
but
Just us.
Okay, I'll be very honest.
Please, yeah.
So when I'm out in public, what you see if I'm at a market or something like that is always very bright and very cheerful, because I'm afraid or intimidated to put the artwork that I hang on my own walls that I do for, I guess, me at this point, out there in public. So, and it's not necessarily darker, it's just deeper. Whereas I don't know who can relate to that, and I don't want to be pigeonholed into, oh, well, she's that artist. Or I would rather be pigeonholed as, oh, she's bright, cheery, and happy all the time, you know, like that. So I think there are two sides to me that I am trying to currently figure out how to, get them together and go out with those.
So there's a brand that you're projecting already, and then there's the inner part that you're thinking, this is part of it, but I don't know how to quite meld it together.
Yes.
So that's really deep.
it's very, very interesting. You're a photographer.
And so, did you have some words? Because I know you all were talking about, when you're a photographer, and you do some amazing outdoor photography, I understand, from our discussion earlier.
That I do a lot of outdoor. But as I was talking with her, I was recalling, I have a phrase that I use within my photography that says, life gives you the moment, photography captures the memory. And so when I think about my photography, I like to think about, I'm giving people the opportunity to relive their experience. Or when I'm working with the stiletto ladies, to give them an opportunity to look at a photo of themselves and go, wow, maybe I really am pretty. Because some of these women have been ridden hard and hung up wet. They really have gone through a lot of social abuse or family abuse. to give them an opportunity to be this, center point of an image, and really just make them, beautiful, because they are beautiful, even though, they ride these big Harleys, these big motorcycles, very strong machines. But some of them are very fragile, and to give them an opportunity to see themselves as being a beautiful, fully tattooed, the bandana hole, the leathers, the everything. It really just, all of a sudden they're like, well, maybe I'm not as bad as, I've been made out to be. And then I have another organization I work with out of Tampa called Loft 181, and it is for, at the time that it was formed, that was the number of aging out high school seniors coming out of foster care, or as they entered, 18, and they were about to lose their foster care privileges, and really just kind of be set sail, And so this organization provides them with clothing and, staples, things that they need, and help them, find some job. And, during prom season, they're out there picking out their dresses, and so we'll go in and, and photograph. You don't have access to those things.
So if I could summarize your words, I would say that you believe in nostalgia and reminiscing, because that's important for people to get back to you. And I would say at some point in your life, because you use the word fragile and helping others, that maybe some point in your life as an artist or as a person, you felt a fragility, or maybe not as beautiful as that you are now, and all those things. So you're really taking the words that work for you and sharing them back to the world in a positive way.
Certainly what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think we're hearing some of this over here too.
Yeah.
So taking some of your feelings and thoughts and sort of putting them out there a little bit more without pigeonholing yourself.
So my experience, I've been a art member at MCA for 4 years, and board chair now, so they really drag you along quickly, which is. Ashley remembers this. I entered my first show around 4 years ago and felt like an imposter. I'm not an artist. It's just the nice picture I took that I like. And they wanted an artist statement. I'm like, not an artist, though. I have a day job. I work at a college. And so that first show was the first time I ever entered anything. My pictures were for me and my family. My mom liked my photos of birds on Facebook, right? And so this is the first time I ever exhibited this here. Ashley chose it as her gallery director's award, and somebody bought it.
Awesome.
So the very first thing I ever showed is hanging in Jen Murdy's office.
Awesome.
And it's still, even after the first exhibit, it was really hard to do it again, because you really feel like, Jordan's an artist, right? I just take pictures that some people like, and so it's really hard to put yourself out there and fill out applications that ask for your, why do you do this, and what's your philosophy on, I don't know, and so it's taken a while to kind of feel like I could talk about my photography as art, and I've done many juried shows now and have things shown, but still, even after 10 or 15 of those, it still feels weird to enter a computer, enter with real artists like Jordan.
Well, I
real
think
artists. My brother's an artist. He's like, shut up.
But you think about it, I think there's a vulnerability with the artist because you're sharing of yourself.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be an actor in a play because you may have other people there, right? You're not the one person. But when it's you and you're sharing something that you like, or you hear a few people appreciate, there is validation when it sells, right? Or someone likes it too. But there's this, you put it out to the world and you say, wonder where that might be, right? Where will that end up as far as how it affects people and changes their lives? And so, and the thing is, we asked you the hardest question we could today, which is why? Because artists, at least my artist friends, think about, they're over here, they've got 5-10 different thoughts going on and different projects going, well, maybe I should do mixed media. No, I really like this over here. And even here, like you said, can be very distracting and overwhelming for an artist because you start to compare yourself to others. You start to go, well, maybe I could do that, or I could do this different. Or when you hang your shows, sometimes you go, I wish I'd have framed this differently. It's how an artist's mind thinks, which is an amazing, beautiful thing. I'm more like the straight line. I'm creative in my marketing, but I'm pretty much like this is where I go with it. And so asking you the why today, I think, didn't you feel like, whoa, man, she put us on the spot a little bit? Like to ask about my art?
The why, and then as we said, the words. that help describe who you are. So that and your vulnerability of putting yourself out there. And like you say, I'm not even a real artist. Well, of course you are. But there is that feeling of self-doubt that I'm just not sure. And one of the stories I heard you say that I loved was that in college, painting really wasn't what you excelled at. You took the painting classes and you were like, this is not working for me as well as I thought. You went with photography, as you said, it was very still, and now we're in a different age, and you're into the digital, and you're making these big, I don't know if it's mural, exactly, large format, and you're using some techniques with the camera, moving around, and it has the effect of painting. So all these years later, you've sort of almost come full circle where he's got this that's got the squiggly, it looks like a painting. And one of the things you said too was people see what they see in it, and they're different pieces. Tammy and I can approach the same piece and see two very different things, and a lot of that's going to be based, of course, on our backgrounds and our environments, but we see the different things. And as artists, you want people to feel your art. You want to see it, but there's a vulnerability in that too, because you don't know what they're going to see. So the story is important in there. Important that you tell your story through your brand, through your art, and then people will find their story in it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you mentioned like your art during the pandemic is a little bit different. And so when I look at your art now, it might be really different than I look at it 5 years from now. And so sometimes art is timeless in that effect that it pulls emotions different ways at different times in your life. So the reason we ask the why and the reason we ask for you to identify words is because that's how you build brand. And so your brand is not just who you are, but your art is a part of that. But when you begin to identify that, you can have amazing conversations with people that are beyond like the techniques. You're actually having the conversations of the why and the feeling and the emotion. And so just like my friend with going through the divorce and that conversation. So I remember her pieces more because of that, because of what happened when that happened. So was it, this piece fell 5 times and I had to hang it back up and repaint it? That's an interesting story for a non-artist. And so as you begin to think about it, think about a piece and how you would tell its story. So I want each of you to think about your favorite piece. Think about your favorite piece that you did or maybe didn't finish, because sometimes people's favorite piece is the one
Working on it.
they couldn't quite get to because it meant like the finalization of the moment that your perfection ended, or however you want to look at that. So think about something that you've done that you think is one of your favorites. Could be that because you made a lot of money, I don't know. Probably not. If I know artists, it's more about the meaning. Does anyone have an example?
I did a painting maybe a year and a half ago, and it's of my friend Callie, and she was playing at the Keep, this red building right here. And I don't know, I've often felt like I have like a few different styles, so that was also part of the reason it was so hard to come up with a why, because I had whys for different things, right? But that piece meant a lot to me, and I've done a few that are in the same vein. But I feel like there's like really amazing things happening with the local art scene, and it feels like documenting in a way. The photographers know, but like it's just like this musician playing at her favorite spot, and just like it being super iconic, and for anybody that doesn't live in Ocala, or the Keep, it's like just somebody playing open mic or something like that. But for people that do, it's just like this special thing that we have here.
It makes sense to me when you think about the Streets of New York photography series, or you think about those 70s photos in LA. They're very distinctive, right? You can spot it immediately. You know where you were when you saw that photo, or you maybe, like in my case, the 70s LA, I wasn't quite that old yet to see, but now I look back and see it. But that's kind of what you said. You said, I kept a moment in time. This is Ocala. This is the quintessential Ocala, and like you used the word iconic. And so that makes sense why that would be one of your favorites, for sure.
And as you just told that story, interesting, I could picture it exactly. I can picture Callie up there. I can picture exactly where she sits up there and her, how she engages with the audience. So for me, I can always begin to, and it brings emits an emotion, a feeling. So that in itself felt very artistic in just your description. That's very cool.
Anyone else have a favorite? Yes.
Well, I also paint and do things in different styles as well, but I had a little watercolor that I did. It was kind of basically a throwaway. I didn't think it was very good, but I often would play with thread. I would like watercolor on fabric and then play with thread on top of that, like abstract. And I've done it on canvases before, but I've never really done it on paper. And I had this little watercolor, and I never can throw any of them away, no matter how terrible they are. There's a little good piece in each one.
Right.
But I thought, I'm going to play with this thread, and I have an idea, and I started doing it, and I was taking pictures of it as I did it, and I loved how it turned out. And I still have it. It's just a little small piece, but it kind of sparked me to do more pieces in that same type of style that I really love. And I would say it's probably one of my, like a signature style of something that I do. So.
I love that you find something good about everything that you've done, even though you think overall, not what I want, but here's this one part.
There's always a good part.
I love that. I love that.
I like that it brings out, a word I'd use for you is unique, right? Because you kind of created your own thing from many different materials, which until you said it, I wouldn't have thought of it myself. Like, oh, we could try this and that. So that's fascinating.
One of my favorites is I have a photo of a bobcat that passed me on the trail, but it's related to my why. I was with some other, I had stumbled upon a group of photographers taking pictures with tripods of a Wilson snipe bird in the water, which is a cool little bird. But this lady said, oh my goodness, that's a big cat. And I looked and it was a bobcat. And she didn't know that. And I says, grab all your tripods and come on this side of the trail. I said, that's a bobcat. Well, the bobcat went in the water because we were blocking the trail. But I told her, just come over here and be still. And so sure enough, the bobcat came out of the water and she ran by us dripping wet, 7, 8, 9 feet away from us and just ran by us. And we have to pull a photo lenses, so all I have are those. But none of them had ever seen a bobcat before in the wild. And so that was part of my why, is helping people enjoy and see nature and something they'd never seen before. And so that's why it's one of my favorites, is because they were mostly a group of older adults, and they had never imagined they would see a bobcat taking a picture of a little bird in the water. And so that was really cool for them, and just move out of the way and be quiet. And she probably could come this way, and it took a minute or two, and she came out of the water and ran by us, and they were just like,
What's interesting, though, is you tell them, hey, step back here and we'll see that. So the educator in you, which I would use as a keyword, comes out immediately.
Yeah.
Like, if we come back here, I'm just going to let you know what I know a little bit about the bobcat behavior. If we do this, maybe we will get that moment. But the fact that the bobcat came out and was wet, I mean, all that is just really, the image, like you said, is in my mind right now.
Right. And the experience they had, but then I'm sure when you translated that to the photograph, the experience of somebody who's viewing it would have to see it up close with the water like that. Because that's unusual. We don't all see our bobcats running through our yard every day. So, and especially if they're coming out of the water in the wire like that, that's really a cool experience to bring.
That's a wonderful favorite. Anyone else want to share a favorite?
You're looking at me.
Oh, so sorry, we're looking past you. No.
There are no wrong reasons.
That's what's amazing about art. There is no right and wrong. There's all the colors of the spectrum and everything.
My English Sharpies, if you well know, probably like 10 years back, I just wanted to see what a Sharpie mark could do to make it look like paint.
Sharpie? I'm sorry, I thought you said Sharpay. I thought you were talking about dogs. Sharpay. Yeah, don't draw with Sharpays, draw with Sharpies. Got you. Okay.
But I made this, what I thought was extremely detailed and extremely like wow picture, painting of an Indian. And then the closest person to me in my life said it looked like a 5-year-old drew it. And when you look at it, no, a 5-year-old could not have. So I use that as motivation to say that you don't ever listen to anyone and what they say. Don't think, oh, this is inferior or superior. It just is, and you still can create and keep out there and do it right.
Because everybody's art is not going to speak the same to everybody else. Tammy and I can look at something and it can be my favorite piece in the whole place, and it's her least favorite in the whole place, and it's the exact same piece. So I love that you're not letting anybody who doesn't see what you're seeing or projecting, you don't, if they don't, okay, if they don't. But you see it, and so you continue. I love that.
Yeah, and if you think about it as an artist, sometimes you're your own worst critic, but when you hear it from the outside, it's almost doubly painful because you took a moment to expose something to show someone something that you really loved. And again, art's like I said, different over time. There are pieces that I liked that now I love now, and there's other pieces that I go, oh, I wonder why I bought that, and I look and stuff. But then someone else walks in my house and goes, that's the best thing ever, And then I have my friend used to be the curator at the Appleton, and she's now in Daytona. She used to come into my home, and it drove her crazy because I'm from Miami. And I used to live in Puerto Rico, so I like the bright colors. And so if you know where I'm going, this Romeo Brito. So I burrito all over. And she goes, oh, that is pop art. That is not really art. That is pop art. And I said, well, it's just amazing to me. I just love it. And so I feel a little validation because he did the Kentucky Derby poster this year. And I'm all like, hello, just a small thing. And then Super Bowl balloons, Cirque du Soleil. So, but the thing was, at that point in time, that was just all over my house. And then when I came to Ocala, I became more nature-oriented, right? I'm like, oh, I like my nature stuff out now. And now that I don't live up north where it's very cold, I actually have stark trees with black and white, like snow. Looks very folksy and artsy. And I'm like, I guess I miss the snow, or I'm more like looking at it going, people are there. And it's kind of funny how that changes over time. So like when you say, someone could say, it's not for me right now, but 5 years from now it could be. And the best actually critic of your art is who? Children. Watch them look at stuff and they notice stuff you didn't even think of, right? So if you're thinking of your brand, maybe ask some of your clients and ask some youth in your realm. If you took some of your art to some of the students over at Pace Center, they might have some vision that you didn't even think of when you did it. And then when they say it, you go, wow, that was exactly the word. I just didn't think of it at the time I did it. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Or?
I've got
Yeah.
I've got a funny story based on the kids. My, now 16-year-old, back when she was about 2 years old, I had this commission up on an easel, and I was just night and day working on it. And I don't know how it happened, but she came out and she slapped some paint to the bottom of it, and I was like, that actually works.
You're like, wait, sign me up.
One thing to say to you when it is, thank you. That was great.
But now I compare what I'm doing with what she's doing, and you can definitely see that she has watched through the years what I have done, and she is very different than what I'm doing, but she has learned how to become her own artist through that, and I think that's amazing.
That is. I love it. Did you have a favorite piece or anything you talked about a lot of the work that you're doing. Specifically to help you.
Yeah, as a photographer, you're going to put yourself out there, you have to come up with a clever name. What is your name going to be? And it's a terrible process to come, because I don't have a name that blah, 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 photography now, but my name doesn't flow that way. And so, I did a candid shot of a baby reaching out and touching a Christmas bowl. Super candid. I was at their home shooting a Christmas party, and the child just reached out and touched. And so I was showing that to a colleague, and she goes, wow, Barbara, you really have a way of capturing wonder. And so, and I just happened to be sitting there with the girls trying to help me work on the logo and work on the name. And we both went, and we're done. So, that is the one that kind of launched my name. And I still go back and did I pick the right one? I don't know. But it really did kind of say exactly
And your name is?
What
is that name you use?
Oh, Capture Wonder.
There we go. Capture Wonder Photography. Look it up, Facebook.
Yeah. And she developed this jar that you capture lightning bugs in, and kind of began using that as I've moved away from that. But initially it was like you're capturing things, and so that would probably be my very favorite.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Was your favorite the big one that you?
Yes, and I was going to, and this goes right back to you. For the longest time, I tried to figure out what this body of work, what I should call it, because when I was working on promoting them for shows, technical photographer, I said, okay, this is floral abstract number 33. This is floral abstract number 72 because it's part of a group of 100 images that I just picked them out and said that would look good in print. Well, as I've been thinking about it and what you're talking about, in one particular image, they're all shot in a garden, but they're all completely abstract. You can't tell that they're flowers because of the way the camera moves and streaks of light and things like that, combination of flash and sunlight and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, somebody told me one day they could see fairies in my images. And I went, oh, that's cool. I'm going to call these garden spirits from now on.
I love it. I love it. I
Love
Full abstract number 37, the garden spirits.
it sounds like a winner right there. I think you moved it up the list. All I know is, as a non-artist, I always thought Untitled #1 was pretty original. I want to ask.
Facebook, we have the
Oh, sorry.
process right here in place.
You saw it in place.
We're hearing things happen tonight. That's awesome.
So I think there are two folks that haven't spoken up because they're actually FPRA members. And so I don't know if either of them want to talk about a piece of art that they've purchased or have, maybe they have done art in the past, that was their favorite. Savannah's in the arts, actually. She works at the Riley. Is there anything of your favorite? I know your office is awfully artsy. I love the big fluffy rug when you walk in.
I don't know, I guess. A favorite, well, I wanted an image board for our symphony brochure. So even though that's art, it is, photography all into one
Creative
thing.
work.
Yeah.
It's
So,
creative work, yes.
and that was just
What-
I tried.
Her graphic design.
Canva.
You actually are very talented with that. Yes, very cool.
But yeah, I would say the symphony brochure, honestly. That was such a fun project to work on. So that's my favorite.
We need to get that framed in your office then, if you haven't already done so.
It's in my office.
We got to frame that. Yes. And Laura?
So I do paint
Yay.
on the side as just a hobby. My dad and my brother, well, my dad grew up watching Bob Ross, so he has been a painter my entire life, and my brother has followed in his footsteps with what the oil paints, and they're very, very good. But I have skewed toward acrylic. So one of my favorite paintings that I've ever done was actually during COVID also, and it's a big marina scene. And I'm not good by any means. Like, these are all just tucked away in my corner. It's just a pastime for me. But I was very proud of this one because it was so unlike anything I've done before. I usually do acrylic landscapes, but this one I had boats, I had docks, I had buildings, I had a little bird, and it was my COVID project. So all of those times during COVID where we were looking for things to take our mind off of what was happening, that was mine. So, yep, my marina boat scene.
Very, very cool. Very cool. So how much time we've got? How are we looking on time? We're good? 10 minutes? You thinking? Okay. All right. So I think have some more words come to mind for each of you as far as your brand. So another extension of your brand is the conversation you have with your clients. So when you meet someone, are you, oh, shucks, I do some art and maybe I'll go look at it? Or are you confident about that? Because as an artist, it's kind of like you are sharing of yourself. So learning how to be an open book with others is really, really important as you develop brand. So part of it is as they say in the PR world, your elevator speech, right? So let's think about your elevator speech. If you had to meet someone for the first time when they walk up to your booth, maybe you have that down pat. Maybe you kind of say, I'm going to hide in the back because they'll buy the art if I'm not standing there, right? Or do you have a story ready for every piece that you've done? Or do you have a story about how you ended up there? Like maybe it took you 5 years to get in FAFO, or maybe you just came to town. So what does that story look like for you, for a person you first meet as an artist? And so what we're going to do is we're going to switch folks up a little bit. So if everyone would go one chair over, so wherever you are, kind of switch, just find a different partner and talk about that for just a few minutes. Pretend you're doing your elevator speech, which means at 30 seconds or less, who I am, what I'm about, and what I'm bringing to you as an artist. Any which way you want. And I'm going to Facebook crowd, find a person, talk to a person, maybe text a person right now, and come up with that elevator speech, 30 seconds or less. And the meanwhile, I'm walking away to go ask the artists in the back their thoughts. Are you an artist?
Her fashion.
I noticed she had some fashion too.
She's a stylist. She wears her art
I love
for
it.
sure.
That works well. Yeah. That's the thing is when it's wearable art, it can get quite expensive, right? Because you change with the moments. And I was very big in the 80s in neon green and the brightest pink of pink. And then when I bought my house, one room was painted neon green, and I said, that was a little girl after my heart. I looked at it, and it was so bright, and so my mother moved into it, and she was, I'm going stir crazy in there. There's way too much brightness. But, and some people just thrive on it, and I was loving it. That's where my office was for the pandemic. Then my mother kind of says, well, when are you going to paint this? One day I showed up, there was art all over the walls to hide the color.
Oh my gosh, that's funny how different people react, especially to color, which is something so artistic. Like, it ties with your emotions and your mood, and it's true.
Well, in favorite color, people tend to have a favorite color that comes from childhood, from a favorite memory. And so usually the first color that you kind of latch on, or when you've asked what your favorite color is before you've really thought about it, sometimes you go to a color that's in the room, but typically it's one you carry throughout your life for most people. Artists, I think, might be different with that, but...
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way. That's really interesting.
So mine is brown. Why? Because of horses. Brown horse. You know, their food was brown, everything was browns. And so it was very disappointing because my horse was like the sienna color, and the burnt sienna, and that was a very hard crayon color to find when I was a kid. Now there's all sorts of colors, but back then I had to mix a couple colors to get the color for mine.
To get the right one, I remember that. Oh my gosh.
Growing up, my favorite color was red, and my favorite Power Ranger was the red one.
I've always been red. My color, but I rarely wear red or am attracted to buy things that are red.
Did I hear champagne?
Yes. Go ahead. So what we're going to do is bring everyone back together, give you a couple seconds to wrap up. I believe the Facebook crowd got to hear my conversation in the back. Yeah, and so we know the folks, our folks that are helping here at MCA, their favorite colors were red as children, and they've continued those colors today. Did you want to add anything?
No, I love it. This is great. I love this. I've really got people thinking. I see some light bulb moments. I love that. No one's got me going there. I just heard her say, that is a perfect speech. So awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
I didn't realize when we asked that first question, we were really stumping people. But
I thought that would have a lot more answers quicker. You're right. They had to stop and think, but that's okay.
pull it out.
That's right.
Okay, so I hear a little bit quieting down, so I'm going to bring everyone back together. And now that we all know each other so well, I'm sure someone would like to maybe share their elevator speech, or what we can do is the person you told it to, or vice versa. If they share it for you, sometimes that's a little easier to see what you conveyed to them. Is that actually what they heard? And this is a part of public relations too, and communications, is sometimes we have to do the communication check. So you notice Carol's very good at it, because you say something and she'll repeat back. So what I hear is, so let's just see when you were talking to the other person, if you actually, they conveyed to you what they meant to convey. So anyone want to share what they learned? Yes, Lauren. Lauren Debig.
This gentleman has a unique skill set of doing underwater photography,
And
which I love.
And what's your name, sir?
Cortland Richards.
Cortland Richards. Look it up. Look it up, Facebook.
And why might you love it, Lauren?
Because I did an underwater photo shoot in a wedding dress. So I wasn't the photographer, I was the
She was the model.
subject.
She was the model.
Water bears?
I'm sorry?
Water bear photography? Is that what you want?
No, I'm not sure who that one is. But I think that's just so cool. That's an awesome elevator speech. It's such a unique skill set. So it's cool.
That's super, super cool. Anyone else? Yes.
I like what
And your name, we didn't get all that.
my name is Sarah,
Sarah, wonderful.
and I'm going to talk about the corrector here. But I like what he said. He goes places in Florida that people would either naturally go or naturally just kind of want to just sit there and take the time to look to see what you're going to find. And so he's very patient and methodical and just waiting for the shot to come along. He showed me a picture of a bear in Ocala National Forest, and that's not something, well, I've never seen a bear in Florida, but it's kind of like taking a day journey and seeing what you can find throughout the state.
Love that. Love that.
You know, somebody recently told me, I went to such and such a place and I saw 2 birds, and I had posted like 9 pictures of 9 different birds, and I was there half an hour. So a lot of it is just slowing down, looking left, right, behind you, up, down, and a lot of people just are in a rush. So a lot of what I do is very slow, quiet, methodical, and enjoying. Yeah.
Ooh, excellent point. You're very in tune with
And
what
she does, that's a thing Sarah does too, is that she very much is in tune and likes reading people and interviewing them to determine what she's going to paint or do for them. That it's not, oh, I do this. No, she really enjoys the discovery process of trying to understand what somebody's going through and thinking about, and then suggest things to paint based on what it represents.
I love that.
That's
So it's very
that's
intentional,
awesome.
It's very thoughtful, so you really are going to represent what they're looking for.
Yes.
Anyone else want to share one? Don't feel obligated. Okay, we'll move on. So what we're leading to, if you kind of see, we're leading you down this pathway, and so it's storytelling. And so you storytell with your art, but now you have to put on our PR hat and storytell with your words. And so those words are, as we use, very intentional, very thoughtful. They may change over time. And they really might evoke emotion in you at times. And so it's good to let that out. It's okay to show folks your emotions. I think in our world today, we think like, well, maybe someone else has had it tougher than I have, or the pandemic's so big, or the world's issues are so big that we don't take care of ourselves with our emotions. And that's okay to wear them on the sleeve. If anything, artists should wear them on their sleeve, because we kind of hope for that a little bit, so the rest of us can identify and come in touch with our emotions. And so that word storytelling, think about that as you paint or as you do your creative processes. And some people in the back do creative, our production and creative graphics, graphic design, and that's art too. And so I think that when we don't need to narrowly define art, art's what we want to decide that is, right? I mean, I might be an artist in my garden, right? I might be an artist trying to clip my horse. It might not look great, but to me, he looks like a champion. So... And then my brother goes, "Can you give me a haircut?" And you look like a champion. You look like a champion. So anyone else want to add a little bit to that storytelling moment?
I
Yes.
love your idea of not pigeonholing art as one specific thing. I think, the painters, yes, everyone knows that painter is an artist, but like photography and chefs create beautiful things, woodworkers. I can't tell you how many people I encounter who are like, "Oh, I wish I could do what you do." And I ask them, "Well, what do you do?" And inevitably, they will come up with something. It may not be picking up a paintbrush, but inevitably they come up with something. They're like, "Oh, wait, in this area of my life, I am very creative." And so kind of opening the box up a little bit and saying that it comes down to, and I think MCA does a very good job of this. It's not just one thing that makes you an artist, but it can be anything and everything.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You look in the gift shop, there's a lot of different types of art in that gift shop.
And piggybacking on what you said a minute ago about showing a little bit of emotion, there I've been, black and white thought of, oh, emotional is just not professional, but that's not true. Emotional, when it's conveyed in an honest and appropriate manner, that's just human. And people want to connect with other humans, and the art helps us do that as well. But that's just being a human, so I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The passion that you show, the passion you have for your art, that is, again, that's part of your brand, and that's an important piece.
Which goes back to our original conversation about authenticity. So we had a speaker for FPRA on Friday, Rashad Jones, who you might know is #1 barbecue in Florida, top 50 in the United States. Just giving you a plug there, Big Lees. So the thing was, he kept talking about, because we asked for what are some tips and tactics for social media, and his conversation wasn't about those tips and tactics. It was about who he is, and it was all about the essence of him. So I see a strong man, I see a person that's very dedicated to their craft, and then that is art to him. You know, putting that barbecue in people's stomachs, it has a feeling that evokes an emotion. And so to him, that is really, really important. So he's not contrived with what he does. And so being true to the story that is you and that your art at the moment that you're in and as you go through life, that's really, really important to the people that you're sharing it with. And that's just a wonderful gift, and it can come out in many forms.
Absolutely. And should.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
should.
So I think we're wrapped up. Does anyone have any questions for us? We do actually have those things that you guys want in your hands, which are actual tips and tactics and suggestions over here. We're going to give that to you, and that actually will go through very specific things. There are also people from the PR world that have chimed in on those with little conversation pieces. And so we wanted you to have that so that you didn't think we tricked you with a wonderful conversation and didn't give you a handout. So they have this Malavix black square. You say it's easy to draw, well then try to sell it. That's their thing. So this talks a little bit about PR for the artists. We will post that and give that to you to post for the Facebook crowd. If anyone doesn't have any questions, did we hopefully hit the mark tonight? Wonderful. Yes, one more. Yes, of course.
Groups or associations that can mentor artists as far as public relations and marketing go?
That is a really great segue. So there are some of those folks in this room that actually do that type of consulting work. There also is some of that a little bit for free at the Nonprofit Business Council, so you can get an hour consultation from an FPRA member that can help guide you. In addition to that, there's some services tonight that are available for sale. And so there are some of those resources, and that's one of the things is we're the advancement of public relations, but one of our missions is to give back to others so that they can learn through us some of those things that work. And sometimes we identify, I'm really great at this, but I think I want to get a PR person to help me with these 4 or 5 things, and that means it frees you up to do what you like to do best, and you have that person do what they do, and it works really, really well. That's how a lot of my artist friends have used me. They sit down and say, I want to do an art show, or I've got a book thing, and what is that going to look like for me? And let me tell you, that's my passion. I'm like, let me line those things up for you, and it makes me really happy. And they're like, oh, it seems like a lot of work. And I'm like, seems like what you painted was a lot of work too. I'm glad you're doing that and I'm doing this. But yeah, so there's a number of resources. I don't know if Carol has any more that she wants to add.
No, that just goes back. I was just going to say, it goes back to your passion, because those are the things we like to do. We like to help create the content, to sell your story, and when I say sell, it's just really telling it so that people can hear it, see if it resonates with them. So those are the things that we like to do. Branding. Lauren does a lot around brand strategy. She's got some services here tonight. So there are a lot of those pieces that are important. The most important is your why and what you're doing and your passion. We just want to help you with getting that out there. So.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being a co-presenter with me, Carol Savage, APR, CPRC.
Most people say savage, but it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Savage,